Hey guys, Dave with First Place Auto Parts. And you know, when you own a Jeep or a four-wheel drive truck, the decision always comes down to some tires, and more specifically the type of tire you buy for your vehicle. Man, maybe you've lifted that thing or you put a set of wide wheels on it and you want a certain look. Look, over my time of driving, I've owned over 15 Jeeps. I've owned everything from CJ5s and 7s to TJs to YJs and LJs and everything in between. And every one of those vehicles, I had to put a set of tires on at some point, and the tire decision was really tough. Look, back when I started driving, our big mud terrain tire was a super swamper. We put those things on, we paid penalties that you just wouldn't put up with today in noise and vibration. And the reality is that mud terrain tire didn't last very long on the streets either. So in today's video, guys, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a look at the differences, the pros and cons of a mud terrain and an all-terrain tire so that you have a better understanding of what you're getting when you spend your $1,000+ on a set of tires. Look, we want these things to ride nice, but we also want them to be capable. We want them to be quiet, but we'll put up with a certain amount of noise. The reality is, modern mud terrain tires, they're not nearly as loud as they used to be, and modern all-terrain tires are much better off-road, and particularly in the mud, than they used to be as well. So stay tuned to this video, and we'll take a look at what's better for your rig, mud terrain or all-terrain tires. Hey guys, if you like today's video, please consider subscribing to the First Place Auto Parts YouTube channel. We're going to continually be adding new videos every week, and we go to some pretty cool car guy stuff I'm pretty sure you're going to want to see. When it comes time to choosing between an all-terrain or a mud terrain tire, there's a couple of questions you have to ask yourself, and the honesty of your questions or your answers will dictate what tire you get into and also how happy you'll be with that decision. The first question you've got to ask yourself is, how do you use your vehicle most of the time? If you've got a four-wheel drive truck or a Jeep, do you drive that thing on the interstate every day to get to work? Do you drive on pavement 90 to 95% of the time with maybe some light trail riding use? Or are you one of those guys that lives to get off-road, maybe drive your vehicle 50% of the time on pavement, but the other 50% of the time the thing's covered in dirt and mud? That's going to have some sort of a focus or a push on what kind of tire you choose. The next thing, and this one's really important because typically these tires are going to last anywhere from 25,000 miles on the low end up to 50,000 miles on the high end, is what are your comfort level expectations for your tires? Because they're going to have a lot to do with not only the vibration that's imparted into the vehicle. I'm not talking about an out of balance tire. I'm talking about just the vibrations because of the aggressiveness of the tread, but also the noise inside the cabin. Look, if you've never ridden in a set of all-terrain tires, like say a set of BF Goodrich tires that have never been rotated and balanced, your ears will hurt from riding in that thing over time. Or if some of the mud terrain tires that are out there will continually howl even when new, to the point that you cannot even talk to the person sitting next to you. Forget about using your phone, forget about listening to your high-end stereo. It's just not going to happen with a set of mud terrain tires typically. And if you have a soft top Jeep, all I can tell you is that soft top does almost nothing to stop the noise from a set of cupped or really aggressive tires on the outside of that vehicle. So really, what are you using your vehicle for, and what are you willing to put up with in regards to tire noise? Because you're going to be stuck with those tires for a long time, and you're going to spend a lot of money to get them. And really the final thing is, it has to do with the longevity expectations, right? Some tires, like an all-terrain tire, a lot of them come with 50, 60,000 mile tread wear warranties, meaning those tires could, in theory, go that long. That's a long time for a tire. But some of your mud terrain tires, because of the way they're built and the spacing in between them and the size of the blocks for the treads, they have a lot of tread squirm, which creates a lot of wear. So you could be looking at 20, 25,000 miles, and a set of mud terrains driven every day on the street or the highway could be worn out by then. So those three questions, really what you're going to use your vehicle every day for, what your level for comfort is or isn't, and also how long these tires should last, are going to be three of the questions that you want to ask yourself, and those are going to help focus you in on what type of tire, all-terrain or mud terrain, that is right for your rig. So let's start talking about the all-terrain tire. And to be honest with you, the all-terrain tire is probably going to be the tire that's going to apply to the vast majority of the people out there in regards to their needs and wants. If we answer the first question we talked about in the opening, which is how are we going to use our vehicle? And if you're going to use your vehicle day in and day out as a daily driver, you spend a lot of time on the interstate, or you have to have a safe vehicle when it rains very heavy and there's water pooled up, the all-terrain tire is going to be your candidate of choice as far in regards to what's going to go on your rig. Look, all-terrain tires have the look. Modern all-terrain tires have gotten much more aggressive in the sidewall design, which helps that look even further. It kind of carries on that image of a very capable machine. But the reality is the all-terrain tire not only is going to be a quieter tire, which is that second thing that we talked about, which is comfort. They balance up a lot better, meaning that those tread void spacings don't create the disruption in the ride process that a mud terrain tire does, and they last longer. Look, it's not uncommon for an all-terrain tire to have a tread wear warranty of 50 to 65,000 miles. That's a long time. Again, they're not inexpensive tires, but if you can get 65,000 miles out of a all-terrain tire, that's a pretty good investment. And also, one other thing about an all-terrain tire is they get better gas mileage than a mud terrain tire, sometimes by up to 10%, which can be a real deal breaker for the mud terrains. If you do a lot of, say your daily drive is 50 to 60 miles on the interstate, that 10% in fuel economy, that thing's going to add up by the end of the year. So all-terrain tires are very comfortable for an off-road type looking tire. They're very capable both on the street, and they're good for light trail duty use, guys. Look, these things are capable. I've seen some guys take some true all-terrain tires of some pretty gnarly stuff, especially if where you full wheel has a lot of rocks involved or a granite that you're going to be going up. All-terrain tires are a great choice. Where they fail is when you start to get into mud, and mud is a great equalizer. And what happens because of the smaller tread void with an all-terrain tire is that tire will start to pack up with mud, and it can't clean itself as that tire spinning, and it turns into a big slick. So where all-terrain tires tend to fail people, off-road at least, is in the mud. They have things called siping in the tread blocks. The siping is the lateral grooves that are actually cast into the tread blocks themselves. And what those things do is help carry away water, especially when you drive on pavement. So all-terrain tires are a safe choice for a vast majority of the people out there. Again, if your vehicle stays on the road 80+% of the time, is used for some light duty off-road, you want the looks, but you also want comfort and a noise level that is fairly low. If you keep your tires rotated and balanced, the all-terrain tire is the perfect choice for your rig. The mud terrain tire, on the other hand, guys, that's the one that we all think of as the tire that we want. I can only imagine it's like dating a supermodel, and by that I only mean we see this supermodel and we go, man, we really want that. But the reality is, a week after living with the supermodel, we're like, man, we're really sick and tired of that. In a mud terrain tire, if you're going to drive this thing every day, and it includes a lot of pavement, falls into that category. Mud terrain tires have bigger tread blocks that are further spaced apart. Those big tread voids, that area in between the tread blocks, is what makes a lot of that noise. As that tire rotates and comes in contact with the pavement is where you start to get that roaring noise. And that roaring noise can be deafening, guys. Literally, you cannot hear the person either in the seat next to you or the seat behind you. For some of you guys, that might be okay. Maybe you don't want to hear that person anyways, but maybe you have a stereo system that you want to hear. In a mud terrain tire, an aggressive mud terrain tire, you can forget about all that, to be honest with you. Look, they have a lot of tread squirm. And what I mean by that is those tread blocks are not supported by each other, and those big tread voids allow those treads to grip rocks and off-road into the mud to grip very effectively, and they also allow the tire to self-clean as you go through mud. Hence the name mud terrain. As that tire is spinning, there's really nothing holding that mud into those tread voids, and it flings it off to the side. But a mud terrain tire on the street, especially when it's wet outside, because effectively you've got a smaller rubber contact patch on the ground, is a scary thing. When you hit these deep mud or water puddles off to the side on the street, have a tendency to pull or hydroplane at worst. So mud terrain tires, in my experience, have not been the greatest thing on the pavement. They also wear at an accelerated rate if all you're doing is pavement driving. Again, that big tread block tends to squirm on pavement. So not only is it wearing this way, but it also in the turns has a tend to squirm, which creates additional friction and wear characteristics on the tread block. And the handling with mud terrain tires is different than it is with an all-terrain tire. Again, if you remember, I said there's not as much actual rubber on the ground, and that's true, but those blocks and that make up that tire also have a lot of movement in them, and they tend to give a little bit more of a vague steering input than what an all-terrain tire does. And look, what I said about fuel economy, it's just the mud terrain tire, typically they're heavier and they're a little bit softer in regards to their construction. Again, you want a tire that conforms to the ground when you're off-road. A mud terrain tire does off-road very well, but it doesn't do pavement all that well. And it's something that if you decide to go with a mud terrain tire, know that you'll probably be replacing those things every 20 to 30,000 miles. Your vehicle's going to be very loud inside, and it's going to have a lot of vibration through the seats, the floorboards, and the steering wheel just because of the characteristics of the tire. So if you're an off-road guy, heavy off-road guy, more than 50% of your time, consider a mud terrain. But the reality is, the all-terrain tires, probably your better choice. And you can find really aggressive all-terrain tires in a lot of different brands and a lot of different sizes. So there is an answer to the question, what type of tire is right for my truck or my Jeep? And if you remember the first three questions, if you answer those things really honestly, how do you use your vehicle? What comfort level do you expect, and how long do you want them to last, and how capable do you want them to be for that, what you're going to use that vehicle for? The reality is that the all-terrain tire is going to be the right tire for probably 90% of the people out there. If you spend most of your time driving your truck or your Jeep to work Monday through Friday, and on Saturday you want to cruise around with the top down, and on Sunday maybe hit the trails, then the all-terrain tire is going to suit your needs to a T. There are some very aggressive looking all-terrain tires out there now that are available in a ton of different sizes. These things work really well off-road. However, if you have a Jeep or a truck that you just long to get off-road and get muddy, and you go searching for the deepest mud hole every time, then maybe a mud terrain tire makes sense for you. It's just not a great daily use tire if you're going to be on the pavement a lot. So if you're one of those guys that's really hardcore, loves the challenge of maybe not getting stuck every time you get into a deep mud hole and don't have a winch on the front of your truck or Jeep, then a mud terrain tire might make sense. For me, I can tell you that every time the all-terrain tire not only made sense, but it got me out of everything I could have ever imagined. Look, by lowering the air pressure, and the reality is when I have a winch on the front of my Jeep, I'm not going to get stuck anyways. So an all-terrain tire made a lot of sense. I bought a lot of Jeeps that had mud terrain tires on them, and I hated every minute of those tires. I couldn't wait to get them off. Like, it's just no fun having all that vibration, all that noise all the time. I drive my Jeeps typically, it's a third vehicle, but I'll drive them a lot on the street or when it's nice out or even sunny with the top down. So I just didn't like the compromise I had to make with mud terrains, and I'm going to guess that you probably won't either. Guys, I hope this video was helpful in making a decision on what type of tire is right for your Jeep or your four-wheel drive truck. At First Place Auto Parts, we have got tons of restoration, performance parts, and repair parts for both classic American muscle cars and trucks, but also for late model stuff as well. So please check out our super easy to use, always open First Place Auto Parts website anytime you need parts. Guys, until next time, keep the hammer down and keep it between the guardrails.